Hello YouTube. Today we'll talk about a very interesting metal called aluminum or aluminium. And it's either a relatively new discovery or an ancient metal. Aluminum is the third most abundant element on Earth, but in nature it only exists in very stable combinations with other materials, particularly as silicates or oxides. And it was not until 1807 that its existence was first established. Sir Humphrey Davy, an English scientist, named aluminium in 1807 without succeeding in actually producing any of it. Alumium was the name preferred by Sir Humphrey for the metal, but aluminium was adopted by the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. That's why aluminium is the international standard. And until the year of 1925, it was spelled identically in the United States. But then the American Chemical Society went to aluminum. So this is the term I'm going to use. But when I speak about aluminum, you know that I also speak about aluminium. Clays consisting of hydrated aluminum silicates were used in ancient pottery, and aluminum sulfide, alum, were known to the ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, Greeks, and Romans for the use as mordant in the dyeing process. However, it was only in 1825 that a Danish chemist, Hans Ørsted, succeeded for the first time in producing a small lump of aluminum. He reacted aluminum chloride with potassium amalgam, an alloy of potassium and mercury. Then, heating the resulting aluminum amalgam under reduced pressure, he caused the mercury to boil away, leaving aluminum metal. The French chemist Henri Saint-Clair de Ville opened the world's first aluminum factory in 1859 at Glacier near Paris. And in 1886, a breakthrough occurred when an American and French scientist concurrently discovered the same basic process for producing inexpensive aluminum, but neither knew of each other's work. Prior to that, aluminum, a highly desirable metal, was very expensive to produce. Now, the method known as Hall-Héroult process is still used today. Now, the process of extracting aluminum from bauxite is complicated and involves the use of an oven, a rarefaction chamber, and a regenerator, as well as electrolysis and temperatures of over 950 degrees Celsius. Modern aluminum smelters provide a clean, efficient, and protected work environment at a low unit cost. But there are hints and information that aluminum was well known and prized in antiquity, in ancient times. And let's look at China and find out what they know. In the year 280 AD, Emperor Wu Tai of the Jin or Qin dynasty conquered the Wu kingdom, thus ending the period of the three kingdoms and reunifying China's north and south by force. In the 1950s, when Chinese archaeologists examined the burial site of Chao Chu, Wu Ti's famous military commander, they discovered a metal object that had no place in ancient China. It was a belt that consisted of 85% aluminum with an admixture of 10% copper and 5% manganese. Chinese and Western scientists examined the ornament, and the finding created quite a stir. The Russian writer Viktor Nikitin mentions this episode in his book published in 2001 in St. Petersburg, Tayny Iных Миров. It is not known what Chinese authorities think of the metal found in Chao Chu's tomb. Perhaps we'll find out one day. But we should keep an eye on Eurasia when it comes to aluminum, and especially China. And we should try to get as much as possible from India. Now, going back to Europe, we should remember that Caius Plinius Secundus was a friend and fellow soldier of Emperor Vespasian. We know the man as Pliny the Elder. This renowned Roman naturalist lived around 23 to 79 AD. He was the author of at least 75 books, not to mention another 160 volumes of unpublished notebooks. Pliny's one surviving work is an encyclopedia of natural science, Historia Naturalis, published in 77 AD. In this book, Pliny deals with the nature of the physical universe and geography, anthropology, zoology, botany, curatives derived from the animal world, mineralogy, and history of the fine arts. Nowadays, much of the information in Pliny's encyclopedia is considered to be inaccurate, and yet, in Historia Naturalis, despite its flaws, it remains a key source of information about Roman life. I cannot vouch for the accuracy of the following episode from the Historia, but if it's true, it suggests that at least one Roman citizen knew about aluminum. One day, a Roman goldsmith was allowed to show Emperor Tiberius a dinner plate made of a new metal. The plate was very light and almost as bright as silver. The goldsmith told the emperor that he had made the metal from plain clay. He also assured the emperor that only he and the gods knew how to produce this metal. The emperor became very interested and also a little concerned that all his treasures of gold and silver would decline in value if people started to produce this new metal. Therefore, instead of giving the goldsmith the reward that he expected, the emperor ordered him to be beheaded. And now we need to look at ancient Greece. After his teacher Socrates' death, the Greek philosopher and scholar Plato journeyed extensively. His travels took him to Egypt, among other places. In 387 BC, Plato returned to Athens and founded the Academy, a school of science and philosophy. This school became the model for the modern university. In 350 BC, Plato wrote about a country he called Atlantis. Plato's Atlantis, before it sank in about 10,000 BC, was an inhabited island in the Atlantic Ocean outside the Pillars of Heracles, that is the Straits of Gibraltar. The Greek scholar gave the world its first written description of the wonders of Atlantis. The country he wrote about in his two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, was described as an island larger than both Libya and Asia Minor put together. Atlantis was the center of great economic wealth, and it was a military power whose goal was to subjugate all of Europe. Atlantis possessed magnificent mountains and large lush fields, where every known crop was grown. The earth was rich with precious metals and stones, especially aurichalc, an alloy of copper and some other metal. Atlantis was the domain of Poseidon, god of the sea. When Poseidon fell in love with a mortal woman, Cleito, he created a dwelling at the top of a hill near the middle of the island and surrounded the dwelling with rings of water and land to protect her. At the top of the central hill, a temple was built to honor Poseidon that housed the giant gold statue of the sea god, riding a chariot pulled by winged horses. It was here that the rulers of Atlantis would come to discuss laws, pass judgments, and pay tribute to Poseidon. The outside of the temple of Poseidon was covered with silver, except for the figures on the pediment. They were covered with gold. Inside, the roof was ivory picked with gold, silver, and aurichalc. According to Plato, bulls wandered freely in the courts of the temple of Poseidon. Every 5th or 6th year, the princes of the Atlantean islands would come together to swear allegiance to the holy laws. At such times, one of these bulls would be sacrificed and its blood allowed to spill on an inscribed pillar made of orichalc. Plato wrote of orichalc that it was in those days the most valuable metal except gold. But Plato did not describe the properties of the mysterious metal. Was the orichalc of Atlantis the aluminum of today? Now we'll go to Germany to find out more. A gifted pioneer in field archaeology, the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann was best known for his excavations in ancient Troy and Mycenae. His discoveries established a historical background for the stories told by Homer in his great epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. From his childhood, Schliemann was obsessed by the idea that Homer had given an account of true history. He believed Troy really existed. Before his death, the great archaeologist came up with a theory involving Atlantis. Though he was too old to continue his explorations, he wanted his family to continue the quest, and so he left behind a secret manuscript in a sealed envelope. In a note composed before his death, Schliemann wrote, "Investigate the east of the ruins of the temple of Sais and the cemetery in Chacuna Valley. Important. It proves the system." Paul Schliemann made a solemn vow to devote his life to the research willed by his famous grandfather. In 1906, he opened the envelope and read its contents. He learned that Heinrich Schliemann had believed that Atlantis had been the cradle of civilization and that colonies of its former inhabitants had later settled in ancient Mexico, Egypt, and Greece. As he later told the newspapers, Paul also found out that his grandfather had discovered a bronze vase containing fragments of pottery, images, and coins of peculiar metal. Donald Mackenzie, in his 1917 book Myths of Crete and Pre-Hellenic Europe, wrote that the bronze vase and some other objects were engraved in Phoenician hieroglyphs, reading from the king Kronos of Atlantis. According to a Russian historian and journalist Tatiana Samoilova, the figurines and coins found inside the vase were made of lightweight silvery metal, orichalc. The coins were quadrangular in shape and covered with strange symbols and shapes. The symbols did not resemble any language known to man. There was a ring made from the same metal. So was it the orichalc? Heinrich Schliemann claimed that the analysis he conducted on the metal revealed that it was an alloy of aluminum, copper, and platinum. Paul Schliemann, according to the Russians, claimed to have had read to him by scientists at the Hermitage extracts from the Egyptian papyri preserved in the Russian Museum that made reference to the land of Atlantis, the homeland of the Egyptians' ancestors. In the future, I will tell you a few mysteries that involved Egyptian papyri or papyrus documents that had been stored in the Hermitage Museum, because there are a few very interesting stories, some of them quite fascinating, about lost or stolen documents. But that's for the future time. Now we need to look at Eurasia, at the Scythian treasures. The Scythians were ancient nomads and one of the most mysterious of ancient peoples. Herodotus, a Greek historian of the 5th century BC, was the first to describe the lifestyle of these barbaric tribes. He wrote half a volume about the Scythians, stressing their ferocious warlike nature. Herodotus claimed that young Scythian women had no chance to marry until they had killed an enemy in battle. The Scythians inhabited lands north of the Black Sea, in what is today Ukraine and southwestern Russia. They were skillful horsemen and brave warriors. It is believed that they were the first to domesticate the horse. The Scythians had a great love for gold. Perhaps they had also knowledge of orichalc. It is not clear where the Scythians' original home was located. One of their legends claims that they were descendants of 3 sons of Targitaus, a supernatural being who lived near the Black Sea. A Roman historian offered another version of the Scythian past, in which their ancestors Scyth was the son of Zeus and a snake-legged goddess. The Scythians practiced shamanism, and their shamans were known as Anaris, but left no temples or places of worship after they disappeared from history. The Scythians worshipped a goddess whose name was Tabiti Hestia. They used cannabis for religious purposes, as indicated by findings in their burial mounds, kurgany in Russian. And here is the interesting part. The Russian historian Plotnikov went to work at the Hermitage just before World War II began. Very early in his employment, Plotnikov was given a project. A ceramic vase from a Scythian kurgan had been accidentally broken. The vase contained a number of ancient coins. The fragments of the vase were sent for their restoration, while the coins were collected and put in a box. Plotnikov had been a buff of numismatics, so to say, ever since his childhood, and he was given the task of sorting and cataloging the coins. In the process of this work, Plotnikov discovered a very curious lentil-shaped coin. It appeared to be made of silver, but it was very light, as if it was made from aluminum. The coin depicted some being with a trident and some strange symbols. There could have been no aluminum coins at the time of the Scythians. Plotnikov consulted Soviet numismatic experts. They all came to the conclusion that the coin was a fake. Someone must have stolen a truly precious coin, copied the design, and placed a fake in its place. Yet they could not comprehend why the fake coin had to be made from aluminum rather than the more fusible lead or tin. Plotnikov was convinced that the strange coin was a fake, and he did not return it to the museum. Shortly thereafter, the war came to the Soviet Union. Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg again, was evacuated, and the coin was lost. Was the coin really a fake? Was the being with the trident the same Poseidon in whose honor a temple was built in Atlantis? I guess we will never know. According to the Scythian tradition, dead chiefs were buried with their wives, servants, armor-bearers, horses, and grooms. The kurgans also contained numerous artifacts, from weapons and harnesses to personal adornments to everyday objects. That some contained coins from Atlantis or some other land where the process of extracting aluminum from bauxite was well known in bygone days. We might look to China as the origin of the coin. There is evidence that the Scythians migrated from the borders of China. The famous frozen tombs of Siberia, excavated at Pazyryk near the border of Xinjiang, China, and Mongolia, contain relics made of wrought iron, none of cast iron. All of the tombs show clear Scythian influence. Most contain articles imported from China. There was a tremendous amount of interaction between the Chinese and the Scythians, as far back as the Han Dynasty 2000 years ago. The Chinese tried to forge an alliance with the Scythians against the Huns. Perhaps the Scythians brought coins made of orichalc from the state of Wu. Until we find evidence, this is nothing but speculation, and evidence may be unearthed one day. So then we will find out more about the ancient orichalc and where it came from. But we also should look to the sea to find proof. And it was very interesting that in the spring of 2017, underwater archaeologists who have been investigating the remains of a ship that sunk about 2,600 years ago off the coast of Gela in southern Sicily. Those archaeologists recovered 47 lumps of the precious alloy about February of 2017, and a jar and 2 Corinthian helmets. More ingots of orichalc, the ancient metal that was purported to be mined at the mythical island of Atlantis, have emerged from the seas of East Sicily. The wreck itself was found about 1,000 feet from Gela's coast, at a depth of 10 feet. Those newly found ingots of orichalc came in addition to a cache of 39 orichalc lumps that were originally recovered in 2015 from the same shipwreck. And it's quite a unique stockpile. Now, the same area contained 2 other archaic shipwrecks. The 86 ingots found on the seafloor make up a very unique stockpile, because never before was anything discovered in great quantities. And orichalc, pertaining to that, has long been considered a very mysterious metal, as we said, with its composition origin widely debated. Now, the ship dates to the end of the 6th century BC, according to the Italian archaeologist Sebastiano Tusa, who is the superintendent of the seas for Sicily. And it was most likely that the ship was caught in a sudden storm and sunk just when it was about to enter the port. Now, the Sebastiano Tusa's team is still working to fully excavate the shipwreck and recover all the cargo. Now, this is fascinating stuff, and we should keep our eyes open, because I'm sure we'll find out a lot more interesting artifacts. We just need to find out if it gets to the media. Now, the question is, are the finds already made, are they of the real orichalc? The X-ray fluorescence undertaken by the scientific instrumentation company indicated that the recovered ingots are an alloy made with 75 to 80% copper, 15 to 20% zinc, and a small percentage of nickel, lead, and iron. So was it orichalc? The ship that carried them was traveling from Greece or Asia Minor to Gela, which was a wealthy city with an abundance of artisan workshops that specialized in the production of valuable artifacts for the time and the period. The orichalc ingots, if that's what it was, were headed to those workshops. And in the workshops, they would have been used to make adornments and decorations for the fashionable people of the time. What's interesting to me is the recovery of the 2 Corinthian bronze helmets. That's I'm not known why they would be aboard the ship, whether to be used as weapons or helmets against pirates, or to be an offer for the gods. I have my own research about the ancient helmets from one of the most ancient civilizations on Earth, one of the most mysterious civilizations, and I'll get back to this story later. I do want to tell you that in the future videos I'll tell you about discoveries by Soviet and Russian scientists about Atlantis, made in 1984, not too far from the Gibraltar Straits, and a few other pieces of information which is generally not known in the West. Thank you.